Newtral Zone, where grit meets growth. There's no clear path, we carve our own. Every shift, every unknown. Pull up a seat, it's time to start. Turn down the noise, hear the heart. Newtral Zone, this is where grit meets growth. This is where grit meets growth. Newtral Zone.
Welcome back to the Neutral Zone, everybody. I am your host, and today we are joined by someone who defines the word longevity in this game. He has played in 1,000 professional games. He has wore the C for multiple franchises, and he has seen the game from every possible angle, from the blue line to behind the bench, and now as a parent of hockey players himself. So, joining me today is Nathan Lutz.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Nathan, before we drop the puck here in kind of our first period of questions, we're going to kind of set the starting lineup. So, if you were going to introduce yourself to a room full of people who might know hockey, but might not know anything about Nathan Lutz, give yourself a little rundown intro in like 60 seconds or less. Who is Nathan as a player? And now, who is Nathan as just a person?
Well, my name is Nathan Lutz. I'm 48 years old. I live on a farm outside of a small village called Mustatum, Saskatchewan. There's maybe about 50 people in a small little village. Married to my wonderful wife, Kayla. Two kids, Abby and Brooks. Abby is 15, Brooks is 11. I farm with my family out here in Mustatum. I'm a real estate agent also for the past 4 years in my spare time. And hockey wise, I love hockey. I've always loved it. I have a passion for it. That'll never change. So it's something that's part of my DNA, my family's history, and I just love the game.
Awesome. I love that. So, talking a little bit about kind of family history. So, did you have family members growing up that were already in the game, or did you kind of start off that journey for your family? Or tell us a little bit about kind of your background growing up.
Well, all of my family played hockey out in Saskatchewan. Long winters, a lot of snow. As you can see behind me still, we got snow and ice. Our natural ice is still going in the rink in Mustatum. So wintertime was hockey. My grandma actually played a little bit of goaltender too with Sears catalogs taped to her shins. My grandpa and his brothers played. My dad went to college in the States for hockey. He was the one that got me going in hockey. I think I was skating when I was about just after 1 years old. It's been in my family, and that's all I've ever known is playing hockey and skating and just loving the game.
I love that. Seems like anybody you talk to with hockey that plays or has played, they started almost when they could walk. Seems like very early on.
Yeah, for sure. It was early on with me. Like I have pictures of me in diapers wearing my first skates and stuff like that. So, and all I remember is just loving going to the rink and just skating in general. And then it turned into hockey, minor hockey, and it just progressed from there. But I've always loved going to the rink. It's a special place.
Love that. So you mentioned kind of growing up in a small town, and just not a lot of people there. Do you think that that's kind of where you developed your character that kind of got you through the 1,000 professional games? Is that kind of where that kind of character growth started? Just kind of making it in that smaller town. Do you give that a lot of credit to what kept you going during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Like growing up in a smaller town, living on a farm too. Um, it was instilled in me early just about hard work, doing the best you can all the time. Obviously, lots of times it doesn't work out or, things don't go well, but that's where you just got to keep going forward. You can't dwell on the past and just a small town, like I say in the winter, we had uh, a small community. So we didn't have football or basketball or lots of those sports. So that's where hockey was the main sport. And winter's so long here that what else do you do in the wintertime but play hockey? So everybody played, but just growing up on the farm, my grandparents and parents and just instilled the hard work mentality. Um, so that's where, as I got older, I started realizing more about, having to do that hard work to get anywhere, to succeed or follow your dreams, have those goals. You have to work hard with that. So it's a small town thing, but also growing up on the farm, it's a lot of hard work and sacrifice, and you just have to work hard to get things done.
Absolutely. So with kind of growing up in that town and then moving on into, cities and different places to play, was there much of like a culture shock, um, team wise and maybe like city wise? Uh, and kind of when did that transition happen for you, where you kind of got the feeling of like, okay, this isn't, the whole statement of, we're not in Kansas anymore kind of moment of, this is a little bit different.
Well, I moved away for the first time when I was 15 to play AAA midget hockey is what it was called back then. But I only had to move half an hour away. I billeted with my aunt and uncle, so that wasn't bad. Then I went on to play junior hockey. That was a little farther away, maybe 4 hour drive away, a little uh, bigger city. Went to high school there, which was a huge eye opener for me because I went to school in my hometown school. And, it was a school about kindergarten to grade 12, and there was maybe 90 students in the
Oh,
whole
okay.
school. And then my graduating class, I got to come back and graduate in the Statham, and we had 8, including me. And that was the biggest graduating class in a decade. So that's how small of a school I went to. But the biggest culture shock eye opener is I got a scholarship in the States to Iona College, and that is in New Rochelle, New York, about 25 minutes from New York City. So that was
Okay.
where, when I got there, I remember one of the first times I had camouflage pants and a black long turtleneck, Saskatchewan clothes kind of thing. And it was such a culture shock there. So many people. And that was when it's like, wow, I'm in a different world here.
Yeah.
So that was quite the culture shock there. But it was an amazing time there. Met lots of wonderful people and learned a lot about, the world outside of my little bubble here in the state of Saskatchewan.
Right. Now you mentioned kind of, going through billeting and different things into college. So I know things are a little bit different, nowadays, but maybe think back of when decisions were made on like if you wanted to kind of go through the junior ranks and go pro through that way versus like going to college and then trying to enter pro after that. Um, what kind of decisions did you have to think about with both of those? And for kids nowadays, maybe talk a little bit about the different paths that you can choose and kind of maybe what some pros and cons might be, between going the junior route into the pros versus maybe going to college first.
Yeah, well, back when I was playing, the rules are much different than they are now. Um, that's where major junior up here in Canada, if you even played one game of major junior, you would lose your college eligibility. So that was where, when I was coming up, I wasn't a huge prospect. I probably could have played major junior, but I wanted to uh, get my education if I could. I knew some guys that had got scholarships and that route. So that's where I stuck at the junior A level. So that's where, but now you can go into major junior and still get a scholarship. So that's a good thing for kids now, because back then it was, do I go major junior and really try that? But then some guys would go and play a year and then they wouldn't play the next year and then they couldn't go to college. So that's where I wanted to try and get my education if I could. So I played on a couple junior A teams in Saskatchewan, really good organizations. And then I was lucky enough to get a scholarship down in the States. So that part worked out for me that way.
Yeah. Do you think, with that opening up now, do you think there's a big difference between those two paths now, or do you think they're very similar by still having the opportunity to go back to college if you try the junior route first?
Yeah, it's a little different for guys because now there's lots of uh draft NHL drafted players that are going to college because college is a little older players and stuff like that. It's becoming more uh like NHL style, a little older, where juniors, younger kids, and things like that. So that's where you see, like this year, Gavin McKenna. He's projected to be the first overall pick in the NHL draft. He went to college and was playing in Penn State, I believe. But then there's lots of really young prospects going the major junior route. So it kind of all depends on, everybody's got a different situation. They're from different places. They're at different levels. Everybody matures differently. But now there's lots of NHL teams that don't mind their prospects going to college for at least a couple years. But that's where also too, they're maybe only going for a couple years. I don't know if they're getting their full education or not, but that's where those big prospects, like their main goal is NHL and they're headed in that direction. So it all depends on what you're looking to do with your hockey career, and then also try to look past the career once, because it doesn't work out for everybody and different things like that. So there's a lot of different things to navigate to in today's world with kids going to college or junior or things like that.
Right. I think, it's a good thing with different opportunities that kind of open up, but at the same time, with, all the different opportunities, it's even more things to consider. So it kind of goes both ways there. Um, Now, before you kind of started reaching those upper echelon of games, I should say, and getting closer to those milestones, what kinds of things kept you focused during like those long bus rides where, the paychecks might have been pretty small, the bus rides were pretty long, and you kind of had to think back to, why am I doing this and what's keeping me going?
Yeah, that's where I wish I would know how many hours I've spent on a bus in junior and in professional. That's where, when I was playing American League, couple places we would fly a little bit, but lots of long bus trips. I remember my first year in Toledo, Ohio, my first year professional. We went down to Florida. I think that was a 24-hour bus trip. It was a nice bus, but some places better buses than others. But I just always loved the game. I love the competition. I love the team. Like all the guys that I've met over my career, just phenomenal people that I've met. But just the competition, I love to compete. Um, it's it's part of me. It always has been. I'm very competitive. Uh, I like to win, but I hate to lose more. There's a difference there, and also too with my family. Like my family supported me, my grandparents on both sides, and my mom and everybody, mom and dad and sisters and family, and that's where I wanted to play hard and do what I was supposed to do all the time. But that's where I just love hockey. I still do. I always will. And it was just an amazing ride that I got to go on, to play so long and be healthy. That's the one thing with injuries too. I was very injury free for my whole career. It was just a blessing. So that's one reason I could play so long as well.
Absolutely. Now you had a lot of different teams that you kind of were a part of. Think back to maybe like your first day in one of those locker rooms. It can be any team, but thinking back for like entering that team as kind of a rookie for that specific place, um, how do you approach, even if you've played for years, how do you approach entering a locker room as like the rookie on that team, although you might not be, a rookie in years of experience? How do you kind of balance, fitting in with different teams at different times, and bringing what you can to the table while also understanding that, this is your first time at that place, or, you might be around people that have been there a little bit longer. How do you kind of balance keeping who you are and what you bring to the table, and also trying to fit in with the culture that might already exist there as well?
Yeah, I was always anxious, like a very sleepless night before I would go to a new team or things like that. I was always a little bit anxious and, just the not knowing what to expect or, lots of these, almost every team I played on, it wasn't a guarantee that I was going to be on the team.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of stress with that, uh, trying to be prepared as much as you can, meeting so many people, making a good first impression, and performing on the ice. So, but that's where once you get there and you get on the ice, everything kind of falls into place. And that's where your preparation and things like that are so huge. Um, but that's where going into a team, established team or something like that, that's where, you just you want to do your best, but also uh, try to assimilate yourself with everybody on the team. But I just had to do what I knew I could do. But that's where the longer you play, the more things you learn, and you have to learn from your mistakes. I made many, many mistakes preparation wise or play wise or decision making, and that's where, when you first start out, my first year professional, I had no idea what to expect. And then you're playing with some really good players that have played for 10, 15 years, right?
Right.
And that's where you kind of look towards those guys and watch what they're doing too. And that's where if you're a good player, you've picked up things from players that you've played with. And that's where the good leaders too, they help the young guys out. Like that's where when I got into my later years, I just wanted to help the newer guys out any way I could. So that's where I had lots of good leaders, captains and stuff like that in my playing days.
Yeah. I love that you're kind of mentioning that. That kind of goes into a question that I was going to ask you. So, based on the different teams that you've been on, was there a specific kind of like an old school vet that they kind of took you under their wing and, you know, let you lean and learn a lot of things about, um, what it looks like to be a vet that you kind of took with you as you got further along into your career?
Yeah, there's so many guys. Like you say, I played on a lot of different teams because that's where, my first few years I was trying to get as high as I could. So I was called up and down to many different teams. I lived out of a suitcase in a hotel for probably my first 5 or 6 years almost. So that's where my first uh, captain in Toledo is Jeff Mitchell, longtime player, played a little bit in the NHL. He was really good. He was at the tail end of his career. He had two young kids, and he was just really, really good to the younger guys. He'd been all over the place, and you could ask him anything. And just to watch him with his wife and his kids and how he treated them, how he treated the coaches and the training staff, and just an all around good person. And that's where his son actually just made his NHL debut this year for the Islanders. I remember playing mini sticks with him in Jeff's apartment there in Toledo. So that's just one.
I
Um,
love
I,
that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see that because that's where I was at the end of my career. I had two young kids and young kids coming up and just trying to help them any way I could. And, that's where, like I said, made lots of mistakes. And that's where I just try to help them not make the same mistakes I did. Mistakes, you almost have to make mistakes to learn, but that's where some things you try to give the younger guys a little edge on that and so they don't have to make their own mistakes to learn from those things. But just so many leaders, like I played with Wade Flaherty, longtime NHLer, played with him in Milwaukee. We were roommates on the road. Um, and he was just a great person and just helped me through that year. I had some troubles with some things, and just guys like that were just so influential to me and helped me navigate through because you're on your own. You're
Right.
down there, you're traveling all over. Obviously you can communicate with your family back home, but like I say, I was living out of a suitcase. I'd get a call one day, okay, you're going to Portland, Maine. So go there. I was there over Christmas break in a hotel on Christmas. I remember ordering Chinese food because there was no restaurants open. I didn't know anyone there. It's not easy. Like that's where lots of people like, oh wow, there's some times where it's tough. You don't know if you're going to be there the next day, and then then once you thought, well, maybe I got a chance to stay here, next day you're
Mhm.
going back down. So that's
Yeah.
where the mental toll of just not knowing too with that kind of stuff was hard, but that's where I just wanted to be there. I just wanted to play hockey. I wanted to be a part of it and compete and show what I could do. So that's where a lot of guys I think kind of pull the pin and kind of quit on that. But I just wanted to play so bad. I didn't care where it was. That's what I wanted to do. So
Well, and I love that you share those stories like that because it's really one of the reasons why I started this podcast because I think a lot of people get kind of a false idea of thinking, okay, regardless of what level you're at of being an athlete, that like yes, the paychecks might not be the same, but like the experience might be the same as some of the higher tier levels. And sometimes I think fans, you just kind of get comfortable seeing what's in front of you, which is just the games on the ice and things, and not really thinking of, the behind the scenes effort and, the circumstances and, conditions that the athletes, you guys have to, deal with in order to continue to play the game that you love. So, I appreciate you sharing those stories because I think it's important that people see, the behind the scenes of the glitz and glam of the athlete world, I guess is what I should say.
yeah, for sure. Like that's where at the lower levels, it's NHL, then AHL, ECHL. When I first started playing, there was United Hockey League, which was about the same as ECHL. I played in the CHL, and that's where those leagues back then too. Like now, there's lots of like Professional Hockey Players Association that helps the players with things. But there's lots of stories about minor league where they didn't have like a union and that's where lots of guys got taken advantage of because guys just want to play. They would
Yep.
do whatever. So like, at the lower levels, you're scraping by and,
Mhm.
maybe not in the best departments or, different stuff. Like it's not all the glitz and glamour that,
Yeah.
you think about the NHL or that type.
Mhm. It's kinda like with the field of education sometimes, people are like, "You don't get into it for the summers off." I'm like, "No, you really gotta love what you do because, it's not for the weary and, it's not bringing in the paycheck." So you
Yeah, for
you
sure.
really gotta love what you're doing in order to keep going.
Absolutely.
Oh, I identify with you there for sure. Um so kind of wrapping up this section, I would say for period 1. So you later on in your career, you also kind of took on some player coach roles and I know that you kind of have helped coaching with your kids as well. Um Is there something that you realize now as a coach that maybe like you were completely blind to when you were just entering the minor leagues as a professional athlete that, now as a coach you kind of go, "Oh, okay, that's what that was," or that's why we did things that way when, when I was a player. Is there something kind of now that's hit you that you're like, "Oh, this is what coach meant when, he said this."
Yeah, well, that's where the coaching has really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Like as a player, lots of times you're just thinking like, what is this coach thinking? Or how can he expect that? Or, just a lot of questioning of the process or different things. And, now uh been coaching minor hockey here and stuff like that. And that's where with my coaching, I have a process of what I want to do and how to accomplish that. And it's hard for the players sometimes to see what I'm trying to do or how much work I'm putting in away from the rink. And so that's where, I look back at the coaches I had and just the work that they had to do to try and get 20 guys on the same page, because that's what it's all about, is the teamwork. Like if you don't have everybody pushing and pulling the same way, it's just not going to work. And it's a hard thing to do because every single person is different. How they react to things is different. How you treat them has to be different. 'Cause that's where kind of back in the day, I think they kind of treated everybody the same. And that's where with me, like I cannot treat everybody the same because they're not the same. They're
Right.
totally different people and they react to, some people, some players, you kind of give them a kick in the butt and they respond to that, and some don't. Some need a pat on the back instead of a kick in the butt, and that's where you have to figure out individually with each player what makes them tick and how to get through to them and how to get the best out of them. Because as a coach, that's what I'm trying to do, is to get them to be the best they could possibly be. And that's very hard. And that's where the coaches that I've had in the past, like I I apologize to some of them for for how, but that's where when you're young too, in junior, 16, 17-year-old kid, you think you know everything. And so that's where, as you get older, you realize I didn't know anything. And so that's where you have to, with coaching, uh, kind of take it easy too. And you just got to earn the trust with them first and try to go from there.
Yeah. Well, now on period 2, we're going to kind of talk about just life off the rink and just kind of civilian life, I guess you should say. So after retiring, I guess I should say, from, the professional life, what you had to kind of transition to quote unquote normal life, and what would you say was the hardest, I don't know if habit is the right word, but what was the hardest habit you had to break, or like learning how to just be like a normal person on a Saturday night when, there was no game? Like what was that life like for you, that transition? And what were some of the habits that, you had to kind of rethink or relearn?
Well, that's where when I was done, like I always came home in the summer, worked on the farm. I worked doing stucco business with my best friend for 15 years. So after my last year in Tulsa, I came home and it was things as normal in the summertime. And it was, summer was good, everything like that. The farming went well. And then it was right after the farming was always done. It was about the time that I usually was going down to the States somewhere. And that's when it really hit me, was like, what am I supposed to do now? Because every year for, with professional and junior in college, they've totaled about 25 years, I always was going somewhere. So that was where it was very hard. I was just like, what am I supposed to do now?
Hmm.
It's hockey time. So that's where it was hard my first couple winters, but I ended up playing, like up in Canada, there's senior hockey. It's competitive men's hockey. And that's where there was a team that I played for the first couple of years, very competitive team. and that really helped me. You know, I think we maybe played 20 games or something like that, but I really needed that because it was every year I'd go and, be with the guys and do my thing. I've been doing it forever. This is what I do. So
Yeah.
it was a really hard transition in the winter. The summers were fine. I was, working on the farm and doing what I always have done. But so that's where it was really hard to not be the hockey player Nathan, right?
Yeah.
But that's where it I've kind of weaned myself off of it. I actually still am playing some senior hockey. Um, I just love it, right? I'll never not play. It just feels so good. But yeah, that first year, I remember looking out the window and I was just like, what do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. I think identity is a big thing, and I think even at younger ages with, the kids that I teach, it's you really have to dive in and figure out who you are at the core, and, when the outside attributes are taken away. Because whether it's, retiring after a while, or even, if you had to end something early due to an injury or anything that you didn't have control over, what do you lean back on in those times? And really, who are you? And it is a struggle, I think. And, it's something that I don't think is talked about enough, that transition um, between doing something that you've done for a while to not, I think sometimes can get overlooked and maybe not given as much importance as it should be. So,
Yeah, that's where I think a lot of hockey players have that because, guys that have played professional or a long time, like that was their main thing. So that's where with the kids too and coaching them, it's becoming more and more like kids are playing hockey all year round and that's their only thing. Like that's
yeah.
where I want the kids to do other sports or, spend time with friends or have that other identity, not just you're so and so the hockey player, because eventually it has to end sometime. And that's where a lot of guys really struggle with the identity because they were the hockey player the whole time. That was their whole thing. So that's where, trying to help kids to um, with that and have more interests in different things too. That's part of their identity and personality other than just hockey or any sport. Like now, specialized sports like volleyball,
Mhm.
softball, baseball, like so specialized that, and then, if injuries, like lots of people get injured and cut their career short, and that's very hard because that's all they've ever done. So that's where focusing on schooling, like with my kids, I tell them school is more important than hockey or their sports. Like school has to be number one
Mhm.
because you can always fall back on, your what you've learned or things like that. But that's where it's hard for a lot of guys when they're done.
Yeah. Are there any like hobbies or interests that you've kind of picked up since retiring and kind of moving on to this next stage of your life? Is there anything new that you've had time to pick up that you're like, oh, I didn't know this was this interesting or fun, and I'm kind of learning more about it?
I bought a drum set a couple years ago.
Okay.
That that went over for about a year.
I was about to say, what'd your family think of that?
Well, it wasn't bad. Well, that's where my wife is so amazing. Like she's like, whatever you want to try and do, you go for it. But in the
Yep.
summertime, like on the farm, very busy on the farm in the summertime. But
Yeah.
that's where too, like my daughter's into horses, so we're busy with the horses. We go camping a little bit. I've always loved fishing.
Yeah.
Over COVID, when it was COVID, I started collecting lighters. So I was fixing old lighters up and stuff, just little things. But also, in the wintertime, but I still, like I say, I still play hockey, coach the kids, a lot to do with hockey. So I haven't picked up too many things, but tried a couple things, I guess. So
Yeah.
the drumming was okay for a bit, but I wasn't that good at it. So I thought I'd be better.
So you mentioned also, your kids play hockey as well. How does Nathan, the hockey dad, look compared to Nathan, the hockey player? What have you learned a little bit about, being the hockey parent and do you kind of also have to apologize maybe to your parents for something now that you realize that?
Yeah, for sure. Like that's where, because I've been coaching my kids going up the ladder since they were young. So that's where that's a hard dynamic, to be a coach of your son or daughter. And that's where how my son is to me is how I was to my dad. And I just feel bad about how I treated him, or, just thought, well, what do you know? Or you didn't want to listen to him. So that's where it's very hard to coach your own kid. I think every
Yeah,
parent has that, just that dynamic. Like you don't want to favor them. So you're almost harder on them than everybody else. It's just a very hard dynamic, and that's where, uh, it's been going well. But that's where also too, because I for first couple of years I was coaching both my kids, but then it was getting too busy. So then I was coaching my daughter and then watching my son, and that's where sitting in the stands and watching a game is not for me. I have to be involved in it. Like I'm terrible, uh, just watch. I have to sit by myself and no one can be near me. And I just, it's a hard thing to do. So that's where I would rather be on the bench and try to help if I can than
yeah,
being sitting in the stands where I can't do anything. It's my wife laughs at me for sure. And I definitely don't like watching. I want to be a part of it, but obviously I can't all the time. So it's hard. It's
yeah.
not an easy thing.
I can imagine kind of having to turn that switch off after having it on for so many years. It's
Yeah.
not.
Well, it's also too like that's where in my career I was fortunate enough that I didn't miss many games, but it's hard to sit in the stands, but also it's way easier in the stands. Everything looks way easier. It's like, well, why didn't he do that? Or why did she
Right.
do that? Or, what are these coaches thinking? It's very easy from the stands to criticize everything, but once you get out there and you're playing and part of it and it happens so fast, that's where I wish people would kind of calm it down a bit. But that's where hockey's intense. Hockey parents are very intense. It's competitive. You want to win all the time. And so there's there's been some interesting scenarios in the stands with different parents and stuff like that. So it's definitely been an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I can just imagine that we have the same thing, down in the Midwest and the South. I feel like it's the same kind of thing, but with the football and the baseball.
Yeah.
You see those signs hanging up that parents just remember, these are young kids playing a game. I'm sure,
Yeah.
I'm sure, I'm sure those are posted in the rinks as well. So,
They are for sure. I don't know if anybody reads them, but it's definitely, well, that's where also too with officials, uh, there's more and more, or less and less, I should say, officials because of just, the abuse of officials, and trying to get younger kids into the officiating is becoming a real problem
yeah,
because it's just so competitive. And it happens everywhere, but that's a big thing too that I know here in Saskatchewan, they're trying to, um, get rid of that. They started with a green armband for younger officials, and if anyone coaches anybody from the stands or any kind of verbal abuse, they're kicked out of the rink. There's subsequent disciplinary actions with them because there's just a lack of officiating, and with no officials, there's no game. So that's a real problem too. So trying to get the younger kids into it because like I say, if there's no officials, there's no game. So that's a problem for sure that I've seen as well.
yeah. And that kind of leads into like the last question I was going to ask you for this section. So, was there ever any interest in you of becoming an official somewhere? I know you kind of jumped into coaching, but was officiating just not up your alley, or was there ever a time where you dipped your feet into it and you were like, "No, this is not for me."
Well, if anyone knows my hockey career, I haven't been the fondest of officials. just because I was trying to break the law, I guess, too many times, right? But that's where it was a couple years ago when I saw some parents firsthand really abusing young officials on the ice. And this one girl, she tried out officiating, and that after that one incident, she quit. There's no way she is going back. And that's where I wanted to get into it but that's where I'm so busy with coaching and everything but that's where, I never really thought I would want to, but just seeing that, I wanted to try and help the younger kids or, get out there and because it's hard. That's
Yeah.
where too, like I owe apology to many officials over my career. Like that is such a hard because I've officiated a couple, recreation games or my girls team, they played a ladies team and officiating there. And the one time I called a penalty and I was sure that was the girl and it wasn't her. Like it happened so fast and it's a very hard position. So that's where too coaching and be able to watch that a little more. I have the ultimate respect for officials. That's a very, very hard job. So that's where I know around here they're trying uh, more and more things to get officials involved and keep them in the game because we need them.
Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of experiencing the same thing down here with soccer, with officials for soccer. They can start at sidelining for around 12 years old, and they're having some issues a lot with the same kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So it's different sports, but unfortunately the same kind of behavior from the spectators.
Yeah, well, that's where what I see, like it's such a commitment for sports for the parents, right? Like now, like the cost of everything too, like hockey everywhere, I'm sure, but up here, like it's a huge investment. You're financially, emotionally, so invested as a parent that you think that you need to, influence the game or like every game is do or die kind of thing. It's so intense that it's hard for it just to be a game anymore. There's the just, the parents in the stands or how competitive it is and it's taking away some of the fun of it for sure for
Yeah.
some kids but that's where it's so intense and then coaching wise like I coach at every game we're going to give it our best and the other team's doing the same and people traveling and different stuff and it's getting a little bit crazy at times and kind of getting away from the fun part. It's just
Yeah.
the competitive everything is ramped way up.
Yeah. I I can feel that too, and now when you tie in for the older kids, the NIL influences, it becomes
Yeah,
a lot more, importance. I guess we there's what is it? With great power comes great responsibility, kinda
yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
So, can definitely see that transition happening. So for period 3, I've got a couple questions about just character, like grit and growth and things. So with I would say today's hockey game, is a lot more, I would say, fast and skilled for the
Yeah,
younger age,
absolutely.
kids. And so as somebody who kinda grew up when the kind of the old school toughness was a lot more valued and important. How do you teach those kids, like, you still wanna have that old school toughness to your game, while also making sure they don't lose, like, the speed and the agility that is valued in today's time as well?
Yeah, it's a lot different hockey than when I started playing. It's high skill, high speed. Um, but that's where myself, I'm an old school guy, so that's how I coach. Like we try to work on skill and speed and things like that. But that's where in the game of hockey, there's got to be some grit in there. Like hockey's a physical sport, no matter what. with the younger kids, there's no contact, but it's still hard nosed. Like you got to go to the dirty areas. You gotta play hard. So that's where um, I try to implement what I've learned and what's made me successful. I was kind of a skilled player, but there was a lot of players more skilled than me. So that's where it's more of a mindset. Like I was a defenseman too. So that's where all forwards now, like their stick handling and their speed and their moves are so fast that it's very hard to defend. So as a defenseman, I work on, you know, being aggressive and body position and, just thinking the game a little differently too, like focusing more on defense, um, and getting that, like everybody gets praise for a goal, right? A goal is an awesome thing, but that's where I'm trying to convince the kids that if you save a goal, if you block a shot, if you prevent a goal, that's just like scoring a goal and you
Absolutely.
don't get the praise for it. And the worst thing is when in some of these minor hockey teams, there's a grandfather or something like that that gives a kid $20 for a goal, right? And it's like, how many
Yeah.
goals did you score? Well, some kids don't score goals. That's the
Right.
part of hockey. Like defensive players, they're not there to score goals. So that's where I had trouble with that when I was younger too. I played defense and I could score some goals, but I'd come off the ice and, well, how many goals did you score today? Well, I didn't score any. Well, why not? And then that kind of just brings the kids down, it
Hmm.
devalues their hard work and they're part of the team. So that's where, like, for the defenseman, I tell them, like, there's a time and place, but, you know, if you save 3 goals, that's just like scoring 3 goals and
Absolutely.
celebrating that and getting the team to buy in to celebrate that when somebody blocks a shot or saves a goal. It's like, awesome. That's huge. Like celebrate that like we celebrate a goal. So
Right.
that's where just the mindset too of trying to get the kids to think a little differently and team wise and not get caught up in all the Michigans and
Hmm.
that kind of stuff that all these kids, they watch YouTube videos and, I'm going to go bar down and all this kind of stuff, and try to tell them, what's kind of real in the game and what I've seen old school. Like obviously it's hockey's progressing and it's an amazing fast game, but you still have to have those old school values and mentality to succeed, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I'm in agreement 100%. It's the behind the scenes work that doesn't get the credit that usually is the reason whether a team succeeds or fails. Honestly, it's not
Yeah,
not necessarily the upfront stuff.
no, for sure. And that's where there's so much work done with teams behind the scenes, and it just doesn't happen overnight. Like with my girls team, I've had them for 2 years, so it's taken a long time to build those relationships and build that trust and uh, have mistakes and have failures to come back better. Like that's where one of my main things with my girls is next, right? Your next
Mhm.
shift, your next game, like whatever happened last game, that's done. You learn from it. You try not to make the same mistakes twice. Next. If you have a bad shift, okay, you had a bad shift, but it's over. Next. If we went
Right.
out there and won a game, right on, it's great, but that's done. Next. And that seems to help with the girls in all situations during the game, during the season, with good things and bad things, and just little things like that. Like that's just one of the things that we implement, but there's a lot of things behind the scenes in practice, in group chats, in preparation that people don't see that, these kids are taking on a lot and, are just amazing to be able to take those things and see them get better with them. And that's the part that I love about coaching the kids is just seeing their improvement and see a light bulb just flick on. It's like, wow, that worked. You know,
Right.
that's where things that I've learned from so many different coaches over the years that I never learned when I was younger, coming from a small town, or maybe not, people that have played too many places, or like I never had a defense coach, a coach that actually played defense before. So I was learning things when I was 24 years old in the American Hockey League that I'd never been taught before. And they're just simple, very simple things that I was just like, wow, how did I not know this before? And so that's where I'm trying to implement those with these kids now. You can see a difference, and it's really, really been awesome.
Well, kind of wrapping up this third period here. So if I brought you into my middle school classroom, which you did visit school a few times for
Yeah.
some from floor hockey games, but if I brought you into my middle school classroom right now to talk about resilience and success, is there a story you could share with the kids that would get them to see that success is not a straight line?
Well, with the kids, like I always love coming to school. And that's with kids, you got to get to their level, and you got to show that you have a passion for something and that it's fun. Like that's where you got to have fun with the kids, and, kind of show them that you're not perfect as well. Like that's where I like to tell stories about how, um, I tried out for different junior teams and got cut. And, I had times in my career where I didn't play very well, and, I either got sent down or, not made a team. But that's where I would tell them I would just keep working and keep trusting myself. And that's where there's lots of guys that were better hockey players than me, or got drafted, or different things that just it didn't work out for them for some reason. But that's where I would just tell the kids, just keep working, keep focusing, don't listen to the outside influences. And like one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from Claude Noel. He was a coach for me in Milwaukee. He ended up coaching in uh, Winnipeg Jets, and he was actually a school teacher after his hockey career. And I was having some off ice issues and family stuff, and I was just worried about everything. And uh, he was just like, you can't worry about things that you can't control. And that is the best piece of advice that I've ever got, that I give to the kids. You can't control the people in the stands. You can't control the ref. You can't control, w- you know, so many different things. What you can control is your attitude, your hard work, your, love for the game. Focus on the things you can control, your dedication. And that's where I failed so many times in different ways. But that's where you take those failures and you try not to make the same mistake twice. And that's the biggest thing. I tell everyone, the girls, the kids, everyone makes mistakes. Best players in the world make mistakes. David makes mistakes, you know,
Yeah.
but they don't dwell on those mistakes. They take the lessons that they've learned from them and make them better. So that's where with the kids, I would just say, just keep going, keep improving, and just believe in yourself. And that's the one big thing is, say to the kids, like, so proud of you. But that's where I make sure to tell them, like, you should be proud of yourself.
Right.
Someone giving you praise shouldn't make yourself, that self-worth is from yourself. You got to be proud of yourself. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. If you're proud of yourself, you've done the best you can. There's nothing else you can do. But if you have that attitude, you're gonna go a long way in life.
100%. 100%. And that's what these kids these days need, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Like the kids, like it's a different world the kids are living in now too, with devices and different stuff and bullying. Like now, kids can be bullied in their own homes through
Absolutely.
devices and all those things. And, their self-worth is derived from outside influences a lot of the times, which that's where our kids, we're open communication to. Like that's where with kids that I coach or like open communication and talk things out, get things off your chest. Don't bottle things up. It's good to get things out in the open and you can fix them. But that's where like you have to love yourself and everybody should and don't worry what the haters say. Like that's where the girls I always say they hate us because they ain't us. You know,
There you go.
we had a lot of success this year and there's gonna be haters out there. And that's where you sometimes you get focused on, well, that guy thinks I'm this or they think I'm that. They don't matter. What matters is
Nope.
what you believe and what your teammates believe and you know how you believe in yourself. So that's where giving them the power, it's in themselves. It's you can't focus on the praise of other people to make you feel better about yourself. So that's just some of the things I try to implement and pass on to the kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we are entering our overtime period here, which is a little bit of a twist. So what I'm going to do is I've asked you a bunch of questions, and I'm just going to give you a couple minutes to take the mic and talk about anything you want. It could be a passion you're interested in. It could be a message you want to get out to anybody in your life. It could be um, anything you want. So I'm going to just turn the mic over to you for a few minutes.
Okay. So uh one thing that I have been doing this year, obviously it's involved with hockey. Um, I started it's called the Warrior Development. That's where my hometown, in Mustadam, the team my dad played for, the senior team was called the Mustadam Warriors. And that's where I started in my little town here, Warrior Development. And it's more focused on, the defensive side of the game, like for actual defensemen, because that's where now in hockey, it's all geared towards scoring and offense. And that's where I think the defensive part, they kind of get left behind. And like I said before, I never had a coach that was a played defense before. So that's where I started that this year, getting kids from surrounding towns once a week to come into our little uh, rink in the stadium. We raised a bunch of money um, for renovations and built a couple new dressing rooms and new lighting and make a safe, comfortable place where kids can come and feel good about themselves, away from their regular coaches or team and in a fun environment, learning on not just skills, but uh, mindset, how to approach a game, preparation, you know, all the things that I've done for so long that can help kids. So just in my hometown here, this winter's just been fantastic. I've had so many kids come. Parents were loving it. The town is in our little town here. We have no minor hockey for a long time, so the rink wasn't getting used very much. And this year, it's been full of people and laughs and progress. And so that's one thing that I'm really passionate about is just helping the kids too, more than just on ice stuff. Like I say, helping them, you know, love themselves and you know, just try to help the kids. So that's one thing that really passionate about. It went well this year. You know, going into anything like that too, it's like, oh man, is it going to work? Are people going to like it? Are the kids going to enjoy or, you know, learn things? But it's been such a wonderful thing and it's given me so much joy to be able to do that and give back to my community as well.
Now, is that something that's open to anybody, or is
Yeah.
that just for your area?
Well, that's where, well, with travel, right? Like,
Yeah,
you know, but we had kids coming from all over the place. So I opened it up and I didn't want it to be too big off the start because lots of these hockey camps or whatever, they got 50 kids on the ice standing in the corner and, you know, kind of they don't get the personal touch. And that's where I had smaller groups so I could work with kids individually. And I had to turn some kids away sometimes, which I didn't want to do, but I didn't want to get it so where they're almost just like cattle running through the chute, right? Like I've seen
right.
that and and that's where I didn't want. people to think I'm making money off it. So that's where all the fees too I put back into the rink for upgrades and stuff like that. So it's been really good. I think next year I'm gonna have to expand it a little bit to some more nights a week or stuff like that. So, but that's where I put it open to the public. You know, I had people come in and out. Some kids were there every time. Some kids come a couple times. So it was really enjoyable, and for the community, it was awesome to see the parking lot full and the rink full. My wife and a couple other ladies were making delicious rink burgers every night there, and it was like it used to be back in the day for me. So it brought me back to my minor hockey days and just the love of the game. The kids loved coming there and just make it a fun, safe, environment for everybody. So it was really successful.
I love that you're just continuing to give back to, the game that you love and that, gave you a lot of, the first part of your life. So that's
Yeah,
something that I think everybody should really do and hone into as they continue on.
yeah. Well, that's where hockey's given me so many things, like too numerous uh, to list, and that's where it's felt so good to give back. But it's easy for me, like my passion. The love of the game. I'm like a little kid out there. So it's easy for me to connect with the kids because they see how excited and how genuine my love of the game and passion is for it, that it's just contagious. And their love of the game and willingness to learn and just joy out there, it just multiplies all the time. So it's easy for me. It's not like work at all. It's been, like I say, just a uh, pleasure doing it, and it's just a wonderful thing.
I love that. Well, we're going to end with a quick rapid fire section here. So I'm going to ask you a
Sure.
couple questions and I want you to give me the first answer that comes to mind. First question is who was the funniest teammate that you have ever shared a locker room?
Funniest teammate. Oh man, there's so many guys. Who would I say? Well, one guy, really good friend. And that's the thing about playing with so many guys. Like lots of these guys, I don't know if I'll ever see them again. And that's one of the hard parts. They're from all over. But one of my best friends that I met uh, over my hockey career. Vince Maltz, I played with him in Rockford, and he could just make me laugh. Like just a funny guy. I just got a kick out of him. So I'll have to say Vinny Maltz.
Okay. What is the one drill that you hated as a player, but that now as a coach you realize is actually important?
Well, I'd have to say, well, a skating drill. A few different names for it. I think Minnesota Mile is one of them, where you start on the goal line and you go to the blue line, back to the goal line, red line, back to the goal line, blue line, back to the goal line, red line, back to the goal line. It's a hard drill. And that's where, um, hated that drill because it's hard. But that's where we do it in our girls hockey. Every once in a while we'll do it and they know that we're going to do it and it's going to be hard, but it builds your endurance. It helps build that muscle. It pushes you. And overall it's good. But that's where in my practices too, how I connect with the girls is I do those drills with them. So that's where, they know I'm right there with them. I'm trying to help push them. Some of them are getting pretty fast. My daughter, she's pushing me. She could skate pretty good. So it's fun. Like that's where you try to make those drills fun too. Like there's hard work, but there's fun too. So sometimes I'll have music out on the ice. We had this one song, uh, bigger, better, faster, stronger was this song. And that was our motto. And we put that song on at the end of practice and skated. It was about the same length as the song kind of thing. So, and the girls were smiling and pushing. And so that's where that one was really good. But you try to have to make it fun for sure.
Okay. Now you've done some long bus rides. I personally,
Oh man.
around the CHL and the ECHL days. So give me your best bus story that you can remember?
I think we were in Wichita and we were going to Arizona, and that was a long trip.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden we're going along, and I think something something happened with the bus anyway. Bus was down. We were sitting on the side of the highway. We were close to Arizona, so it was hot. So the air conditioning wasn't working. The bus was just cooking. So we were out on the freeway. I think we were close to a gas station or something like that. So we were out there for a long time. I think they had to either ship another bus or something like that. But that's just one of probably half a dozen times that the bus is broken down, um, had to get a different bus or different stuff like that. So that's where, but I just remember that one because it was so hot. We're coming from which it was a little colder, Wichita, but in Arizona there, we're trying to sit on that bus and wait for another bus, and it was just cooking. We were cooked in there. So I'll never forget that trip. That's for sure.
Yeah. Which is more difficult, playing a 30-minute game or coaching a 60-minute game?
It depends what age group you're coaching. Because when I first come back, I was coaching the little guys, and I just come from professional hockey. I didn't realize we were in this big game that I thought in the tense moments. And the one little guy looks at me. He's like, "Hey, coach, did you know that I have a horse named Billy?" In the middle of the game, I just like, "Okay, we're in a different zone here," you know. So that's where playing would be harder. Like coaching, it's more mental, and I really enjoy that part. But playing would be harder for sure because the way I played too was blocking shots and lots of hits and playing as hard as I can. So I would say playing.
Okay. Is coaching professionally with going back into, minor league hockey, is that something you would ever be interested in? Or are you kind of happy in the role that you have now?
Well, that's where I would love to do it, but my family, I didn't want to travel and have the
Mhm.
uncertainty. Like that's where coaching in the professional ranks is probably less secure than playing. You
Right.
know, that's where guys aren't in one spot for a long time. There's maybe a few that get lucky that get to be in a place for 5, 10 years or something like that. But lots of coaches are shipped out, fired, let go after a season or half a season. So that's where when I was done, like I say, I had traveled and lived out of a suitcase and packed up a U-Haul and hauled so many times. And I wanted my kids to have a stable home life where we didn't have to move and the uncertainty of that. So I would love to coach professionally, but um, I've had my run with my playing days, and I love to be able to help the kids too. Like that's where helping the kids where they don't know the things, that I've went through and be able to help them. That gives me so much satisfaction to be able to help kids around here too, where, the resources and a lot of travel and you can't get to the big cities lots of times. That's where I love to be able to do that here. So
Absolutely. I love that. Well, maybe in, 15 years, we might see the minor league team come out of your hometown. You never know.
well, we're trying to get the senior team back going here. So
There
yeah,
you go. Got to start somewhere. You got to start
yeah, for
somewhere.
sure. That's where a lot of people from Tulsa keep saying that I should come back and coach there,
There
and
you go.
that would be awesome. Tulsa was such an amazing place for me the last 3 years. Like that's 3 years was as long as I'd been in there. My kids and my wife and everyone was just so amazing there. Like we just loved our time in Tulsa and the people. Like we miss it too. Everybody was just amazing there.
Well, we definitely miss the Lutz family down here as well. You guys were very important to all of our fans, and that kind of ends with our last rapid fire question. So, um, with the ECHL and the CHL, and you coming from Wichita into Tulsa, you got to experience like a huge rivalry between those two teams. Um, so it doesn't have to be one of those teams, but which arena would you say had the best atmosphere for you to be like the villain in? So when you were going on the road, which arena just really gave it to you?
I would probably have to say Quad City when I played in Rockford. Rockford Quad City was a huge rivalry, and I always loved that. Like I would be coming out, the fans would be screaming at me, calling me names, this and that. The one thing that made it great about Quad City is we almost always won every game that we played in Quad City. So that made it a lot easier to leave the ice at the end of the game and be smiling. And because I know because the Tulsa Wichita one was pretty harsh too. After I played a year in Wichita, and then I
Yeah.
came to Tulsa. When I went back to Wichita, oh man, that was
Yeah.
pretty vicious there. But the fun thing about that is all 3 years that I played in Tulsa, we won. Was it a Casino Cup?
Yep. Yep. The Great Wolf Lodge
Yeah,
Cup yeah.
that's right.
The Grey
So,
Wolf, yeah.
and I think and I was the captain, so I got to get the
Uh-huh.
cup when they presented it. So we won that all 3 years. So that was nice to do that there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. Those rivalry days were a lot, and they still are. So,
Yeah,
it's
well,
fun
that's
fun thing.
great thing about hockey too, the rivalries like that too. It gets pretty intense and it gets the juices flowing, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, to wrap up our time here, I've got one closing question for you. And that question is, so your career, you spanned over 15 years, you had 1,000 games, which is crazy how you ended. It's like, did you have a counter going down or just randomly that's where those games, ended? But um what would you say looking back you are most proud of for who Nathan Lutz is character wise, and something that hockey didn't give you necessarily, but that through your journey in it, it helped you find.
Well, I'm just proud of, how I got better as a player and as a person. Learning so many things that ran over into my personal life, and how I got better as a person, as a leader. Um, and that's where I know Adam Pleskach, when he was getting interviewed or something like that, he was talking about someone he looked up to, and he said me and how I treat my family and how I treat, the people on the team, and, how I, you know, just try to be the best person I can be to everyone. So that's where just the growth that I've made from, my 20s into my, almost 40 years old when I finish. Um,
Mhm.
I think I learned a lot about myself, learned what not to do, what to do. And that's where I learned from other people and tried to take in as much as I could. And I'm just proud to come from a small town of Mustatum, and I know lots of people know where Mustatum is because of where I've been and how I've represented myself and my family. So, but everything I owe to my family too. Without their support, I would have not been able to do anything like this. So, all the credit goes to them, and just proud to do the Lutz name proud.
I love that, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing about your journey and what you've learned about yourself and just about the game that you love. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate the honor and the joy it was to be able to watch you play in Tulsa for 3 years. I am very thankful for that. So
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And I always keep track with when the Oilers go to play the floor hockey with the kids. And, I always love community stuff too, like that. And, um, it's awesome that you do that kind of stuff. And thank you for your teaching. I know teaching's not hard, and all the teachers out there, like, you should be very proud of yourself, and you you deserve more credit than you get with everything you do as well. So thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.